This is iRacing.
It was denial of a career day 1 week ago at the Nürburgring. It could have been the first ever win for Mario Bodlosh, but ultimately he had to walk into the reigning champion and his third win of the season. Now on home soil, Eduardo Radice can look to gain a one-race advantage with a finish ahead of James Byrne, a championship gap of 23, but Imola, a circuit where Radice has never won in the Grand Prix Tour. Welcome to arguably the greatest racetrack in the world, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Jake Sperry here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Stephen Koenig is alongside me for company as Christian Deploy is in the director's chair using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But what to be said around this great racing circuit that has seen so much amazing action put forward to it and has seen some of the very best memories that racing has had to offer. Let's take a look at what this 5,900 strength of field will bring with your GSRC track guide.
Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsport's history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single breathtaking turn. Now the Triple Apexer not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them?
A wonderful circuit, the resting place in 1994 of the legendary Ayrton Senna and lesser known, of course, Roland Ratzenberger the day before. A circuit that opened in 1953 as a dedication to the son of Enzo Ferrari, Dino Ferrari. This is a circuit that, as far as a racing lap goes, might be the greatest racing lap in the world, Stephen.
I completely agree, but it's also a challenging circuit that really think out of the box. And well, in practice, quite a few of the drivers finding some challenges through Gresini and Tosa, where the rears started to lose a little bit of grip. They started to go and slide around and a loop-de-loop at the end. But the 4.9 kilometer circuit is going to force drivers to really think about pit strategies in this race. It's not a 10-lap race. It's not a 15-lap race. You're looking at over 60 laps to try and keep it all together. You're thinking about your pit stops, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and ultimately, who's going to get the check flag at the end.
Yeah, so that is going to be something they can be aware of out there over the course of the racing that they will have. But let's talk the championship as they walk into the 5th round of the season, and it is Eduardo Radice, 3 wins out of 4 to his name, just a 6th place at Mugello where he was leading on the final lap. The difference maker there, James Byrne 23 points clear with 40 points back. Jacob Reed, the 2-time champion, who is now on possibly his longest ever win drought out there in the Grand Prix Tour. Sander Haugerud in his first season is 4th. He's 3 points clear of Jeffrey Lawler and Volta Lux, who's in 6th position. Mario Bodlosh with his 2nd place finish goes to 18 points, and he finds himself in 7th, tied on points with Leopold Staneros, and on count back he's ahead with Emil Bernstorff 9th on 15 points, and then Alex Hagland on 13 rounds out the top 10 in the standings does the Swede. But if you're brand new to this one here in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, what are they, Stephen, looking out for here today?
Well, you're going to be looking at round 5 of 24 rounds in the 63 laps, open setups to really dial in the cars, whether you want top speed or you want a little bit more aero. But go and crash into a wall, there is no spare car to deal with. In a drive-through at 17 X's at the start, additional penalties of drive-through after every 8X. No disqualifications, but brutal down this pit lane as it's 80 kilometers an hour right the way through. First to last is so easily done.
It very much is. No wind really to speak about here today as qualifying is currently underway. They will have 8 minutes to set a representative lap time and 2 laps to go and use to go and set it here in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. So we will soon see how that is going to play as these first laps are just looking to gear up and start at the moment. Eduardo Rodis is here and looking to be mighty rapid out there. Our focus goes back though to the number 4 machine, looking for tyre life out there. And when I say life, I mean heat out there for Volta Lux, the Austrian. He wants to get himself geared up for his first attempt through the fearsome Aqua Minerale.
Now, it's going to be an incredible one, but for Volta Lux at the moment, hard on the brakes into Grassini, trying to take as much curb as possible. And you can see how the car jacks up as he moves around. It's going to be a difficult one, but it's all about when you're going to use the battery management as well. It's quite aggressive with the open setups. Many of the drivers working with 3 to 4 setups just for qualifying. But it's Eduardo Rodis who currently holds on to the top spot at the moment. But the question is anyone going to beat that 115 as we take a look? Volta Lux able to do a 118.4.
Yeah, so that I wouldn't say is representative. It's gearing up for this aggressive attack through Tamburello, turns 2, 3, and 4, and getting up onto the power. 20 drivers here today looking to challenge, including a debutant in at the number 8, first ever start in the Grand Prix Tour for the Portuguese driver Pedro Gomes, who will be looking to try and charge up the order and say, look, this is what I'm capable of. There is the driver currently on pole. They're in the yellow and green machine out there. A 10th clear of Sander Haugeru in second, and Alex Hagland, who is in third. Gabriel Martinez up to 7th on that first attempt, and now looking to dive down the hill into Ravazza. It equals out and really attacking the curb. This has been a wonderful start to the season for Eduardo Rodis, and may he look to continue it at this point. Charging over for the line. We'll see what it's going to be. It's a 1:14.7, and that's enough to be 6/10 clear of the rest of the pack, but they are going to start putting times down in. Florian Kammeyer goes third. James Byrne then second on his attempt on a 15 flat. Volta Lux also follows with a 15 flat. Now, what about Haugeru over the line? 15.3 won't improve.
Absolutely incredible stuff, but still a little bit of time left in qualifying. Drivers still pushing a little bit more. Jacob Reed now trying to get out of that 12th place spot, wants to get into the top 10, really mounting it over the curves quite aggressively to see if he can move up through the order. The question is, can he get the braking just right through Tosa 1 and Tosa 2 as they really get on the power? Reed hoping to just give it that little bit more. A 109 to try and close down on the 116.8 as our fastest lap from him, and does come across the line with a 114.9.
Front row, but still a quarter of a second shy on that attempt, so is not going to find the answer that is necessary. Matthew Ridgway making only his second start in the Grand Prix Tour will be looking out there for a good attempt. Sebastian Rekov and Wesley Batista are out there too. Keep an eye on Wesley. He might be low in terms of his number as just the 19 seed walking into today, but what he lacks in terms of iRating, he can on times be very good in terms of how he qualifies a car, and could be even a top 5 threat by the time that we get to the end of this qualifying session. Ridgway down the hill then, over to the Ravazzas, these 90-degree left-handers. I tell you what, I would love to have a house on the outskirts of Ravazza. It would be my dream home location to go out there and see. But Ridgeway now looking to push to the line. It's a pedestrian look to the end of this here, so we'll see what it's going to be. It's a 121.4. It's good enough for a time to go ahead of the likes of Balazs Galliard, who will not set a lap, and currently Rekov and Batista, who are out there hoping their laps are going to work. Here is Wesley Batista, though, coming to the line. What can the Brazilian find? It is a 117 flat, and critically has enough time to go for that second attempt.
Absolutely incredible stuff. Sebastian trying to give it a little bit more. Matthew Ridgeway down in 19th position. A 121 to go and try and climb into the top 10. However, it is a mountain to climb. These cars are extremely daunting, and you've got to trust in the aero. You've got to trust to push that little bit harder and see if you can get a little bit more pace. The moment you are hesitant, game, set, match, you're going to be filing your way in towards the wall or losing out seconds, as we see Matthew going in, unfortunately, pushing a little too hard on the throttle, and that's all she wrote.
Wesley Batista all over the outside curb, catches a massive slide. He's pushing with everything, and that's too deep there through the curve of Grassini, and that will see that lap time have to be abandoned. So that will set the field out then here from Imola, and this now lines up as follows. Then from the circuit that is now hosting the World Endurance Championship and also used to host the UCI Cycling World Championships back in 2021, which was won at the time by Julian Alaphilippe. It will be Eduardo Radice who will be on pole position here for running, and critically in his career on pole for what will be the 15th time in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. Jacob Reed will see himself alongside with James Byrne and Walter Lux, third and fourth. Alex Hagland and Sander Haugerud will make it an all up their Scandinavian third row of the grid, the Swede and the Norwegian, with Jeffrey Lawler seventh, Florian Kammeyer going in eighth, with Leopold Steneros ninth, and Dennis Branch rounding out the top 10.
A little bit further down, we have got Pedro Gomez running in 11th position, with Eduardo Opri holding in 12th. Philip Coonhardt in 13th, followed by Kent Nelson, Sebastian Rico, Wesley Batista, Gabri Martinez a little bit further down, George van Rensburg, Matthew Ridgeway, and rounding out our top 20, not getting a time on the board, Balazs Galliard, who will have to start from 20th.
Balazs Galliard, of course, got his first point in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour last time out on his 17th go of asking, which was huge to put in together. He had the longest active streak at the time of most starts without a championship point. Now that is going to be huge as we now get ourselves set. No wind to speak about, 32 degrees track temperature. It is pretty much ideal for what you are looking at in racing, and now the start is going to be critical. Jacob Reed with a good qualifying is a threat in races, and he has a penchant, does Jacob Reed, of winning at Italian tracks, especially here at Imola, because in the last 2 years, he has won at this circuit. The only other drivers to win in the Grand Prix Tour, Aurelien Baif in 2023 and Oliver Stepanov, the Austrian, in 2022. So it now falls to the mark of those to try and challenge around. Eduardo Radice has proven he's got pace on a level that everyone else hasn't quite been able to find. But James Byrne, his nearest rival in the championship, directly behind him. Walter looks ever consistent, someone who can make this one happen. We're expecting potentially a one-stop here today to go and get this sorted. And looking at tyres as well, everybody on mediums except Matthew Ridgeway and Eduardo Radice. They're starting on a soft compound tyre here today, and that is going to be huge. So Radice, expect him to get a better launch off of the start than his rivals around. Let's get ready here from Imola, because we are underway for racing action. Great start by Walter Lux, great start as well by Jeffrey Lawler, who will get the jump through. James Byrne gets around Jacob Reed on the run to Tamburello, and Lawler diving down the inside. It's third already. Round goes Haugerud there in the middle, and he will now find himself in trouble, and more spin through the middle. Contact everywhere as the likes of George van Rensburg in trouble with Ken Nielsen, and the likes of Dennis Branch and Wesley Batista. Scruffy start at Tamburello.
And there's a bit of show of the damage and how much it actually affects the car. Take a little bit of aero away from it, and you can battle to stop the cars. Kent Nelson feeling that exactly. And then you got Dennis Branch going and trying to move through the order, also trying to get around some of the chaos of early on in this race. An interesting tell, however, Wardrow and Matthew both opting to go on the softer compound tires, try and open up the distance early on, while the rest of the field waiting to go a longer way. But both Matthew and Wardrow landed up going and dropping down off the jacks last to ensure the rest of the competitors didn't know what tires they were actually on, and they can't make any changes.
No, and that's the key. They have to make at least one tyre compound change over the course of this one. Eduardo Radice already 1.4 seconds clear. Jacob Reed now looking to try and get by Jeffrey Lawler. This will be for third position. They don't get DRS, the drag reduction system, until lap 3. Into the pits is Gabriel Martinez then on the opening lap, so he struggled. And look at how much gravel there is kicked up at turn 2, 3 and 4 at Tamburello. They really are having to skitter through a lot of debris on the opening couple of laps.
And not what you want to have with a car that's got incredible amount of horsepower underneath your right foot, no traction control to save you. So you have to really be alert of your surroundings, and also how it's going to affect that little bit of tire dig as we go around the course. Now, that's another thing to bring up is, we got a little bit of a flicker coming in, and Jacob Reed having to keep an eye on Lawler, who was disappearing, coming back into view. He will close that distance up under braking, but has to be well enough aware that at some point Lawler might just disappear in front of him, and he's going to have to guess where that car will reappear.
Well, for the moment, Jacob Reed okay to manage it at this stage. Through Ravazza number 2 and looking to really put the power down and give the Americans something to think about. He's been on the podium before this season, has Jeffrey Lawler. He got himself a big third place at Mugello, round 2 of the season, but Reed burning the batteries now, looking to go to the outside, can't find the lane. Then to get it sorted through at Tamburello, so it's going to have to be focused on it. Damage too much as well for Pedro Gomez, who is down into the pits then to enact an alternative strategy out there. So a number of drives. Lawler runs wide. Here comes the move. Then outside of Toza, run was slightly tempered. Jacob Reed will now look to climb the hill. He'll be on the wrong side of the road for Piratella Corner. They've got Volta Lux as well, who'll be looking in to try and get this done. Reed sweeping round the outside, gets the pass.
Winton burned the battery a little bit more just to eke ahead, and now Jacob Reed up into third place will allow Lawler to get a little bit of a slipstream to him, try and close the distance, utilize that DRS to try and get away from Lux, who's hanging on the back. It's now all about building that DRS train. It's all about thinking the strategy. But as for our front two, Wardrow and James Byrne, they've opened up, left this pack to deal with one another, and it's a fight for third at the moment. Who's going to pull the pin? Because the more that you decide to be at the front of the train, the more that you can get the hammered down the straightaway. You can get caught out with the DRS, and those are willing to go for the send.
Well, for the moment, it's a case of Jacob Reed getting exactly what he wants up into third, and he'll have to start hunting Stenero side by side. Dives straight down the inside of Edward Apariari. Hasn't scored points, has Edward Apariari, since the season opener. Balazs Gallia on an absolute maraud then. That puts him +9 with the pass then on Matthew Ridgway. Getting that one sorted from 20th to 11th. Ridgway up from 19th, now falls back to 12th place with that. Let's take a look at the race start though to see how important that opening run was through. This is Pedro Gomez's, if you can understanding too. You'll see Halgaru on the outside, lock a rear, and that causes that problem. He gets stuck behind, and Ken Nielsen on the inside. I think that's a lack of awareness there from Pedro Gomez that creates the big chain reaction for those back in the mid to late pack.
Unfortunately, a number of cars landing up with some severe damage. And once you hook wheels on that, pretty much you become a pilot. Now, let's see what Alex Helgaard will be able to make up the time. Alex has been keeping consistent in pace so far in his laps, but just needs to try and move forward. So Alex will be in the DRS train, not able to go and close up. But at this stage of the game, hoping to close up to Lawler, who's deciding to get into a fight.
Yeah, he was trying to go through. This is Sebastian Rekov then, in your top right of your screen, through Tozer, on the power, oh, curb on the exit, and that's going to snap around so quickly, and bang, into the wall there on the inside, damages the front wing, but Alex Hagland on the back of this group, with Lux, with Lawler, with Jacob Reed, all there. You've also got Florian Kammer, who's having a good run of things, a driver who has the caliber to go out there and win, hasn't finished any higher than 6th at the season opener over at Phillip Island, so he's trying to learn with it. Wonderful chase cam to Aqua Minerale and up to the newly named Curva Grassini, named after Mr. Grassini, whose relevance in the motorbiking world is something to be seen. He currently, I believe, owns the Pramac team.
Absolutely wonderful, and it's also great to see history being made still to the current day. But I also want to cast your eyes a little bit further back. Take a look, Gomez switching out to hard tires as he's trying to go a little bit longer in the race. You got the likes of Brunch, who's gone to soft. So a couple of drivers, despite the impact early on in the race, switching to soft to try and gain time. Gomez, the only driver that's decided to go on hards and see if he can run it through to the end. It's going to be a difficult one, but it's not impossible.
It's not. One retiree so far already is Wesley Batista in the number 19, out of the race then in the opening laps of this one. Jacob Reed currently in 3rd, still trying to hold the likes of James Byrne to account, was 3/10 quicker as Halgaru now looking to recover back to 11th. Balazs Galliard isn't going to let this go, and just behind Balazs out there at this point, quicker than both of them, the South African George van Rensburg, a driver who got involved in the early incident, of course, was there with Kent Nielsen as well, but George has the record for most retirements in the Grand Prix Tour at 20. He's looking to try and jump up though and say he's also a driver top 10 all-time in points. He wants more points here today.
Go and break the streak, but at the same time, go and stomp your name forward. No favoritism to the South African. It's big mistake coming in from Galliard, and now he is going to be absolutely a sitting duck as the rest of the field now compiling their way through. Not quite what he wanted to have happen, but it's so easy. A little bit later on the brakes, you lock it up, straight on, and game, set, match. Now having to try and play a little bit of catch-up as he's stuck in the middle.
He is, and so for Balazs Galliard now, he sees Halgaru in 11th. He will see George van Rensburg behind Philip Koenhart, currently the gatekeeper to the top 10, but DRS comes back here towards Tamburello, and that won't offer and enact a move. You can see the flat bevel of the rear wing. That indicates a medium downforce package here for Sander Halgaru out there today. They'll be looking around and saying, what aerodynamic package am I going to be on? It's medium downforce for pretty much everybody, it seems, here in this field. Nobody has gone brave today and said, look, I'm going to go for a high downforce package, with the exception of Matthew Ridgway.
And also running extremely low to the ground, trying to utilize the ground effects as much as possible as they bottom out around this circuit. It just climbs and drops the whole way through, and you've got to be so careful not to get caught out as well. George van Rensburg now onto the attack as Galliard battles to keep it all together. I mean, this is an incredible, incredible race. And this, I've got to say, is why you want to get into the series. This is why you want to get into these W13s, because the skill level is incredible. To drive these cars is incredible. And, well, I have to say, much like the old LMP1s here on the iRacing, it requires a lot of management to make sure you stay at the top end, but it's so satisfying when you get it right.
Jacob Reed has hunted down James Byrne in the battle of the best on the medium tyre runners. At this point, they're already 5.2 seconds behind Eduardo Radice. They're hoping that his tyres burn out, and so they'll have a chance to hunt him down later on when he's on a tougher tyre out there. Climbing up the hill again, over to the Curva Grassini, this right-left chicane that used to be the Variante Alta, and Jacob Reed knows what it takes to win around this circuit. He's been up to the top of the mountain. Issue that he runs into, he's not been on the best of form. He's had a second, a third, and a fifth out there for a driver who's normally synonymous with winning, and a 17th place at Mugello. that really hounded him with a disconnect that really hurt his chances out there. He knows how critical it is to get moves and to get moves quickly. Hunting down on this 1 kilometre straight, over to the right-hand side, sees no battery being offered up by James Byrne, sweeps it by, what a pass!
Jacob Reed up into second, got a big smile on his face, but now it's time to put in the work to try and break the slipstream, as Jacob Reed will need to keep a very close eye on James Byrne, who will not want to lose out a bit of time. Do not count out Jeffrey Lawler, still sitting, holding on to the coattails, but at this point can be any threat to both drivers if he just puts the hammer down, closes that distance, gets that DRS, and unfortunately lets these two fight it out between one another.
Well, Jacob Reed already pulling out 6-7 tenths of a second. You look at Jeffrey Lawler, he's in the mix, but he's third on the group, so he could be someone who's struggling early on with the DRS to be able to pull himself back in, with Lux in fifth, Hagland sixth, Kamar looking behind at Leopold Steneros in 8th place, for example. This is going to be a very important strategy call that you'll see with the gaps pretty much out already to 8 or 9 tenths of a second here, a second there. Tough to go and make these moves and to see all the changes that are required. Along this front stretch then, they come along once again, and Jacob Reed is proving that he's got legs to go and work with, but on that last lap, making the pass, still lost half a second to your race leader as George van Rensburg now eyeing up Balazs Galliard. They've seen falling away the likes of Sander Haugerud, so this is where GVR wants to go through and give Galliard something to think about. Looks over to the inside, Galliard doesn't fight it, there goes the pass.
Easy run, but now needs to open up the distance, pulling out an inner Jody Scheckter there, trying to claw his way up towards the front. The question is, can he get into the top 10? He's been hunting for it, been looking for it. So far, missing out just that little bit. Now, Van Rensburg has to keep the eye on. I've got a quick one, Jake. We saw the previous race, different pit stop strategies coming into play. Here at Imola, where it's so critical to get yourself into the pits, up, down, and out as quick as you can, what would you go for 63 laps to play around with?
Well, I think it's very critical to note that the tyres here in iRacing will always remain the same no matter which track that you are at. So what does that mean? You only have in iRacing the C2, the C3, and the C4 tyres modelled, which means you've got the softs, the mediums, and the hards are locked. And so today in this race, it's a one-stop strategy. There is no other way of looking around it. But the question will be, how long do you want to spend on the mediums to go on to the softs? And when we were looking around earlier on at racing action, for example, at the Grand Prix Tour race that took place at 10 o'clock in the morning in UK time, it was a case of Alex Hagland did 30 laps on a medium and 33 laps on a soft. The soft tyre can go more than halfway in terms of distance. Eduardo Rodis knows this, and I think so too does Jacob Reed. I would not be shocked to see in this race drivers like Jacob Reed pitting earlier to go and get as much life as they can on that soft compound tyre to get it home and dry, as lapping will already commence for Eduardo Rodis. He's found Sebastian Rekov and Kent Nielsen.
Gonna have to have a nice gentle overtake, and these drivers will be in the blue flag. It's all gonna be hold your racing line and be predictable as the blue flags in the iRacing rules, not necessarily running the same Formula 1 rules, but there's always that little bit of gentleman lift. Say thank you very much, and Walker having an easy run past one of the first of the back markers he needs to contend with. That's one thing you've got to give up for. The sim racers having that gentleman agreement coming into play, but can also land up costing you a fair amount of time if they decide to hold that racing line.
Well, it's blue flag rules which are run under the IMSA style, which means they're advisory, not mandatory, but Eduardo Rodis knows if he gets up close to the likes of Kent Nielsen, he will move over in a safe place and he will happily make that work. Jacob Reed has broken away now from James Byrne, leaving Jeffrey Lawler at 1.3 seconds behind, chasing now through Aqua Minerale and back up the hill here for the Italian right now. He's never won here at Imola. He wants to right that wrong in terms of his career, especially when you consider that last year at the Villeneuve chicane, it was these two who were 1 and 2 in the championship and 1 and 2 in the race that came together through that section in a fight for a race lead, Stephen. And critically, it was Jacob Reed who came out top dog on that day.
And that goes and sets the motion. You don't think it bugs you, but it will be that gremlin on the shoulder constantly reminding you, as the drivers will be giving it that extra little bit. 7 seconds separate them at the moment, heading into 8 seconds. Jacob Reed trying to figure out how can he close up that gap. What is he going to need to do to fight it out, as we take a look at Philipp Kühnert, who's trying to move up as he battles his way through. Got a little bit of DRS, but only just at the moment to try and hold on to that 9th position ahead of him. Late on the brakes into turn 1. Turn 2, still rather dusty on the outskirts, and you have to drive a very, very fine line on the way through.
Both these drivers, Philipp Kühnert and Edward Apariari, have finished each of the first 4 races of this season, both of whom have had 1 finish inside of the point and 3 finishes outside of it. Edward Apariari, a 4th at Phillip Island, and then a 13th, a 14th, and a 14th. For Philipp Kühnert, he had a 10th place finish at Suzuka, and then 2 12ths at Phillip Island in the Nürburgring. And Edward Apariari, just as we say that, off in the gravel, and that one there I think's on me. Grabbed a bit of grass, went straight on, but critically I think he only just kept himself out of the barriers. It's cost him 10th. It's also going to cost him all the way down now to 13th position with that mistake. Here comes Hagland.
A little bit of light damage to the nose by the looks of it, but yep, commentator's curse coming into play. Feel free to send the complaint to GSRC on that one. Alex Hagland moving up, and he's able to have a stellar run in the top 5 at the moment, trying to close up to Lawler further up ahead, going and having Walter Lux right on his rear wing, trying to move forward, and Lux is not going and losing a little bit of time.
No, getting stuck under the dirty air. He needed to be aggressive to get back to the inside at the Villeneuve chicane and didn't quite manage it. Hagland up the hill though here through this small flick right and into Piratella. It's a plateaued corner here through this left. Very easy to spin up if you're not careful because you drop straight back down the hill the other side. It's a good pass on that lap from Alex Hagland, and Volta will know he's in this for the long haul. Volta by day trade is a mechanical engineer, so he is a driver who is so good at what he does. He does his work for AVL Race Tech when he's out there and deciding to use his day job to his advantage. So when he understands how a car works, he's one of the best in the business of knowing what they do, because he knows what they do at the very highest level of motorsport.
And that little bit of info that comes into the world of sim racing can be a big run, especially here in the top echelons, as I would say, in the world of single-seater racing on the iRacing service. And you can see Walter Lux doing everything he can to try and keep in that DRS, try and keep as close as he can. And it's going to be who's going to be first to pull the trigger to dive into the pits and who's going to react at the situation. Through Tosa, gently on the throttle, no one wanting to light up the rear wheels, as it's been a problem in the past and will continue to challenge drivers every step of the way.
It will do. Walter Lux will probably look around and say, I'm about halfway through my stint, a quarter of the way through this race, there or thereabouts, getting aggressive up over the curb, then leaving and attacking for the next stages. Keep an eye out as well on Sander Haugerud in the number 12, who's down in 10th place. He's on the back now of Philipp Kühnert, looking for 9th, and he is desperate for points out there. He walks into today 4th, currently on 36 championship points. Jeffrey Lawler all the way up in 4th. He doesn't want to lose 4th place to that, and Volta looks in 6th. He might even lose a top 5 position in the championship if he doesn't start running up the order and limiting the points damage lost.
Going and trying to pull out his inner Piastri to see if he can work his way up through the order. Sander not having the easy time out there. and battling to close that little bit of distance, trying to burn the battery a little bit more, trying to utilize the DRS, but just looks for a dive down the inside very late on the anchors and manages to grab that 9th place. But it was Philip Coulthard who had to straighten up the steering wheel, lastminute.com, which has compromised his drive tremendously as they start making their way to Tosa.
That's the difference between a driver who looks to finish and a driver who will be looking for points and potentially a race win this year in Sander Haugerud. That was a lovely pass down to the inside. It preyed on the very latest available opportunity to go and get that pass. You can see Coulthard left the door ajar, got to the apex first and said, that's mine. And Philip Coulthard couldn't turn in, take his natural line and do anything about that. Great pass by the Norwegian. He'll be now looking at the Swede 8 seconds down the road in Leopold Steneros.
The reliance and having to trust the drivers around you is absolutely key. And each of these drivers have battled across different parts of the iRacing service. They get to go and battle it out here in the W13s, and they know, right, this is where I can push it that little bit more. Walter Lux, however, closing up the distance, sick and tired of looking at the rear wing of Alex Hugler ahead of him. Now, Alex needs to be rather careful here because Walter Lux is getting quicker and quicker in his lap times. His last lap time was actually his best.
Yeah, getting quicker because they are burning through the fuel out there at this stage. He did a 1:17.9, did Walter Lux. Hagland an 18.2. They've got Dennis Branch a lap down. Sebastian Rekov a lap down. Both of them in front to try and get by. And then they'll be looking at Jeffrey Lawler, who is in front of that, who's cleared it. You've got to be careful about how wide you go. You can get a slow down penalty on the exit then of the curve of Grassini. And keep an eye on those instant points and how quickly they can be racked up over the course of a run. Just tell Eduardo Radice at Mugello what happened over there. But Hagland has about the gap now of 0.6 of a second. He can use it to the best of his advantage and will get the DRS flap open and picks it up off of the lap traffic in front. Now that's a critical form of defence as Branch lunges down the inside of Rekov and gets the path sorted. Nice move out there. Hagland now will be wanting to get by, but remember, these cars in front have license to battle out there. It's a case of where do you let these two go?
Well, if it's a case of looking in the rearview mirrors, which I do think Sebastian goes and takes a look, lifts, and that unfortunately goes and allows Dennis Branch to go and open up the distance, really clear on by. And that's the difference. When are you going to hold your line and when are you going to take the fight? For Sebastian, did the gentleman move, but is now miles off the back of Dennis, who can give a quick lift, get the both of the cars ahead of him, get round and continue on his race without too much of a threat behind it. Both Sebastian and Dennis, both running the soft compound tires, will have an easier time to just match each other's pace.
They will, and so this is what we call the duality of being lap traffic. If you can break away a little bit, if you can disrupt the flow of one car, you can go and get by the second one. And so I would look at what Alex Hagland's looking at. Dennis Branch, he lifts off, he allows one to go through, and he'll probably look to do the same here, just allow the one of Walter Lux to go through because Rekov hasn't been able to hold the same level of pace. And so for Walter Lux, he's realising, though, this is my race. It's not safe for me to let you go through here. I'll lift off of it off the exit. A bit of miscommunication again. Walter Lux will feel like he's being held up now, and this is costing him valuable time because he's now 1.3, 1.4, and Branch on the radio saying, sorry about that, Walter. I didn't know where you wanted to go.
And now it's all about Walter Lux having to get all the hard work that he put in previously, now taken away, put it back in to see if he can close the distance because the traffic is not done as yet. It's not game over. Walter Lux can have a chance to get back into fighting contention for that top 5.
Yeah, that top 5 I think is going to be critical as Leopold Steneros now holds himself steady against Florian Kammeier, a winner. Last time we saw Florian Kammeier win was all the way back last year at Sebring. It's been almost a year now since he has won, and Sebring, of course, last year on the calendar was replacing the Miami International Autodrome, which will be where we're running round 6 of the championship. So it will be a full calendar year since we've seen Florian Kammeier on the top step of the podium. Steneros here has been a driver of fits and starts. He can be up there sometimes at the very best, challenging for podiums. Other times, he's just a little bit pedestrian with the way that he goes. He's 8th in the championship, a 4th, a 7th, and a non-finish is the way that he has scored so far. So Steneros here looking to bring a group of super Swedes up then here in the Grand Prix Tour.
Now, I do want to touch on something that many people overlook in racing, in sim racing especially, and that is physical and mental stamina. These cars require a lot of thinking, they require a lot of work, and considering many of these drivers running direct drives plus load cell pedals, that puts strain on the body. But mentally, you are having to think 3 corners ahead, how you're going to set the cars up. And at the same time, you can do minor alterations, such as changing your diff mid-corner, entry to corner, and exit of the corner. All the math running through the head. Who has got enough stamina to get it through to the end? Now that we're on lap 21 of 63, and this is where you're going to start feeling. You're going to either get into a rhythm, you're going to get yourself caught off guard, or you're going to start going and pushing a little too hard. You're going to start feeling a bit more confident, and it's just one turn a little too far that can land you hard against the wall, as we've seen previously.
We did also note there 4 lights on the dash for Leopold Steneros. That's your indicator that drag reduction system is in full effect in these W13s. Now these drivers hit the traffic load out there with Kammeier and Steneros seeing Rekov, Gomes and Branch all together, all fighting for position. So this is going to be important how this gets cleared. Kammeier very aggressive up over that right side curve and dropping down into Aqua Minerale. Now has to be careful. He runs wide though, and that's going to cost him at least an off-track incident point, as he will get a slowdown penalty that he's got to try and tactically serve. Now through these chicanes and corners, this is exactly what you want to see here from Leopold Steneros, who's trying to close and close and close. How early on the lift into the corners is Florian going to go and give? Again, it's still not quite served in terms of the way he's got to go by. Finally gets it off of the exit as Volta looks. Pits in on lap 21 as Lawler. Now, he's over the curb. Contact with James Byrne, who has to go skittering across into the gravel. A big moment. His front wing is lopped off. In that one moment, Lawler went for the big send, got on the anti-cut curbs, and goodbye front wing.
And James Byrne also having a little bit of damage to his front right as well, going and giving a little bit of a wobble, so suspension damage included as he tries to just limp the car around. Not what you want to have during the race, and now it is major repair work that needs to be done. The question is, will Jeffrey Lawler go and feel the effects as well, bottoming that car, hurting underneath it, and now having to see what is left for it. But this opens up the top 3 completely, and Leopold Steneros will see that he's actually closing up the gap as well and think, hang on, it's not just 6th that I've got here, there's a little bit more to be had.
Yeah, you'd expect James Byrne to come in, go on to an alternative strategy now and get himself a brand new front wing. It will cost him 6 seconds in the pits. Oh, there's contact behind James Byrne. They will scatter there as it was almost Pedro Gomez running up the back. Steneros and Kammeier have to go over into the gravel, and Steneros back on the power. Here comes Sander Haugerud to go by, and he's going to jump by and look to make it. Byrne into pit lane. It's one of the longest and slowest pit lanes, and he's got a penalty. Now has James Byrne down in on the lane for speeding. Here comes Haugerud looking for a way to get himself then in and onto Mark. But for the moment, Haugerud gets what he wants. I wonder whether as well that 17 incident for James Byrne this early in the race.
I've got a funny feeling it is that he got 17 incidents, but remember, he's also carrying a little bit of damage as well. Let's take a look at a replay a little bit early on, and this is off James Byrne to see the initial damage as We do see the overtake happen. Byrne biding his time, waits, sees the jump, and there's the break. Just as he was turning in. Unfortunately, front suspension and nose taking a bit of hammering that would be initially 4x contact. Later on, landed up with another 4x. It's so quickly, and this is something you touched on, you can rack it up so quickly, and unfortunately, even though you're serving the drive-through now, you still got to get that car fixed. You're going to spend more time in the pits, and now every 8 incident points, you get a drive-through. This has just made the race a lot harder, a lot quicker.
Yeah, it really has, and I think we are getting a real sense of who is going to be where and doing what. Pedro Gomez still locked in pits. Florian Kammerer and Leopold Steneros make their calls. So too will George van Rensburg come in and make his pit stop. Eduardo Rodis, 13 seconds clear at the front. James Byrne, 13th place. But we know we'll have to come down in with the black flag penalty to serve this and trundle down the longest pit lane, one of the slower pit lanes in all of iRacing out there, and this one is going to sting. Looks, by the way, has made his stop. He's out in 7th and right behind Alex Hagland, who is the best of those who have made a stop in 6th. Let's take another look at this, though, out there on screen here with this replay here on GSRC. Kammerer down the hill. It's Gomez in front, who doesn't expect the drop-off. Then he loses the speed, can't carry the mechanical grip, goes around, and Kammerer nowhere to go.
And Kammerer taking a little bit of impact as well, and he will be feeling it during the course of the race. Majority of the field starting to switch over to those soft tires. Couple of drivers still out on their original set. Our top 3 still sitting on their original set, trying to go and get that little bit more life towards it, trying to see where they can make the climb. However, Eduardo Rodis has had a stellar drive thus far. How far can he actually push those softs? How far up the field is it going to work for him? And remember, he's got to swap out those tires. Is he going to change to mediums? Is he going to change to hard? What is he going to do? Because he's just burned through the fastest tire of the pack.
It's probably mediums and mediums to the end as Philip Kunhart then makes his stop with Balázs Galliard and Edward Apariari also in then for their first stops of the race. And Eduardo Rodis will feel comfortable. He's got a margin. He's still improving that gap right now over Jacob Reed. So he will look to build and build more out there with what he's managing. There is Jacob Reed, who will see James Byrne, who is a lap behind him, out there on circuit as his nearest challenger. And look at this, James Byrne is just going to move over to one side, say, I know, I'm lap traffic, I'm going to have to let you go. And Jacob Reed now is left with the focus only out there to go and move through. He'll also be eyeing up here, and so too will Jeffrey Lawler, the pace of Alex Hagland and Volta Lux, because that will now soon be for the podium as EOA, Edward Apariari, looking for a way past Balázs Galliard. This for those just outside the points in 11th as we're in the middle of stopping here, and Kammerer is backward, coming out of Aqua Minerale with no front wing.
And that might be a game set match. Landed up with the damage early on, and it looks like it's taken to roost, waiting for the field to come by and maybe just waiting for the clean. But I do think that is going to be a toe back to pits, and can confirm it is. Now, I do want to point out 2 of the hardest charges thus far. Balázs Galliard holds on with 10 places since the start of this race. An early stop for him and managed to get that climb. Remember, he started at the back of the grid. But let's take a look at the replay and see what happened to Kremer as he navigates his way through. Did he lose the mechanical grip? Oh, just unfortunately clipped and major impact into the wall. That is all she wrote for that one.
Yeah, that's the wooden plank there, catching the curb on the bottom, bottoming out the car and causing all that drama. Sebastian Rekhoff, by the way, black flag. He's going to have to come in before halfway and serve his penalty then for 17 incident points. So he's doing that right now. Galliard 11th, and this now for a point out there. He got his first point last time out last week at the Nürburgring. He's looking to go back to back if he can get through, but here's the issue. It's a very strong group for points with Gabri Martinez, with James Byrne and then Jacob Reed, who's second at the moment, also in the mix of this one here. Jacob Reed, a lap right now where he's 15 seconds off the race lead, and so he was overtaken back on the main straight by James Byrne, looking to go out there and be aggressive to get by Gabriel Martinez. Another big slide there for Byrne, and he might just have to let Jacob Reed go, or if they're not going to let him go, it's going to be a case of I am going to have to go and decide where am I going to make these moves. Keep an eye as well on Alex Hagland. He was stuck up behind Matthew Ridgway, so there could be a move for Volta Lux. And as well, Steneros and Halgaru going at it. In comes Jacob Reed. He couldn't wait any longer.
And decided rather, instead of losing time, rather get into the pits. James Byrne, you could see the driving style completely change from the start. Now, as you pointed out, far more aggressive, a lot quicker onto the throttle, taking every little liberty that he can to move forward, sliding out to the fringes of the circuit. He really wants to try and make up some time. Sitting in 12th at the moment, looking at that top 10 as a possibility. It has to be a possibility. But remember, he did land up in the pits with a drive-through, which means 8 incident points, and he goes back through the pit lane again.
Yeah, that's the trouble there for James Byrne, but Volta Lux then will come out then and look at the fact that he's only a couple seconds off of Jeffrey Lawler. Jacob Reed comfortable away, but Alex Hagland holding his ground here in 4th position. 1.6 seconds is the margin. Eduardo Radiz, the only one of the leaders who needs to come down in and make one more pit stop out there, and he's there on lap 28. Here of 63, and managing this finally. Lux is the master of being just outside of the podium. In his 65 starts, he has had 29 finishes, Stephen, either 4th or 5th.
I think he's here to break the streak. You look, 3rd place is within hand's reach, and this will most certainly go through his mind. Finally, he can break the streak, but he has to close that distance. He has to push that a little bit harder. He knows that Lawler, trying to keep it all together, will be going and allowing Alex a little bit of a DRS toe to open up the distance. But Walter Lux, you can see the difference in his braking. He really wants that 3rd place. He wants to do everything he can to close the distance and finally break the streak of just being out of the podium.
What about 3rd? Because Lawler, look out. Here comes Alex Hagland from defence to attack. He'll go the long way around on the American here. Lawler can't beat him on the brakes. Alex Hagland is up to 3rd. And now Volta Lux, can he go leapfrogging up into 4th position here to the Villeneuve chicane? No dice.
Lawler going and battling to keep it all together. Loses drive, and Walter Lux trying to figure out where he would go. Nearly losing a little bit of grip there, nearly losing a bit of time, but is all over the rear wing of Jeffrey Lawler, who is going to be sweating at this stage of the game, losing the podium so far, but still has time to close up the distance, but has to keep it clean, has to keep it neat, and unfortunately is really mounting those curves really hard and bottoming the car out.
He can't afford too much of it at this stage, and I do note, because Radiz is yet to make his stop, we've only got 7 cars currently on the leading lap of this race, which I think is a staggering fact at this moment right now, as Volta Lux still eyeing up Jeffrey Lawler, and Lawler, who's just ticked over a second. Has he got enough for the drag reduction system to tick on? Yes, so he's got that as the safety valve, then going over 318 kilometers an hour, hitting 324 on the straight before diving back onto the brakes here for Tamburello, and through turn 4 with the mark and the statue of Ayrton Senna on the outside. Now over to the Villeneuve chicane, named after Gilles Villeneuve, after his legendary heroics here back in 1982. On the brakes into the Tosa hairpin, climbing up the hill again. Lux no drive.
Every time Lux gets right underneath him, gets into that dirty air, in towards some rough terrain, loses out the ground, and also you could see how he sweeps across the circuit, trying to push harder and harder, maybe overdriving the car ever so slightly, and it's just costing him absolute tenths at this stage of the game.
And Sander Halgaru also dealing with a bit of traffic, but here is Edward Apariari. This is for the top 10 right now, and James Byrne He's 23 points behind Eduardo Radiz. Right now, as it currently stands, he wouldn't be 23, he wouldn't be 33, he wouldn't be 43 points back. He'd be 48 points adrift of the championship leader. If it were to stay like this, he needs as many places as he can and hope for mistakes later on in the season from Eduardo Radiz. He's not getting that at the moment, and Edward Pariari is really fighting well at the moment. James Byrne knows he's quicker, but this is a circuit that is known for being one of the toughest places in the world to go and pass. Just ask Michael Schumacher how tough it was to get by Fernando Alonso in 2005.
Absolutely some great driving that we've seen here. Edward having an easy time to just open up the difference, but James Byrne absolutely clawing away. You've got to take your hat off. This is a car that's been through the pits with a penalty. It's had the damage to it. The driver has had the ultimate form of frustration, but is still out there pushing harder and harder with a huge mountain to climb. He now has to try and figure out what can he do to move forward. How can he push a little bit more? And I do want to point out one driver who we thought was pretty much out of this, Pedro Gomez, getting back out onto the circuit and looking to try and have a bit of fun.
He looked like he wanted to go out, but officially he has now become the second retirement in this race. Has the number 8 with Florian Kammeier down in the pits trying to repair as much damage as he can. He's probably going to be the third retiree out then of this race. A shame for the number 5 out there at this point. James Byrne will also be getting the help from his dad Jamie as his spotter right now, just telling him what he needs to do, where he needs to be, how he needs to be managing this race, and how to get up into the top 10 to then catch George van Rensburg, Philip Koenhart, who's done very well over the course of this run. All of those drivers that you can start thinking about, where do you start lopping off time and getting what you can for it. And again, Ravazza seems to be the best corner out there on the circuit for Edward Apariari. He can pull out to half a second's worth of margin, and James Byrne just can't find that consistency. He's not close enough to make a move. Now he gets there though on a full bore charge of his energy, diving to the inside, and pretty comfortably actually by Apex gets his move back into the points.
Absolutely wonderful. I needed to get it done because the more that the two were fighting out, Valius Gallia started closing up the distance, started seeing an opportunity. Now, with the fight pretty much dead in the water, he's going to have to really figure out, how can I close up that second? How can I get that DRS to move me closer?
Well, Eduardo Radiz, lap 33 here of 63. You would argue that now is the time that he starts thinking about whether his pit stop is there for the medium tyres. He has run this tyre as long as I think that you possibly can, and he will go another lap around then to start his 34th revolution of the circuit. And at this point, with a 43.5-second margin, he's looking around at pit lane delta, and he's probably still got about 10 seconds if he wants to come in, make that stop, and get back out again. So I think he'll be very happy out there at the moment that he is just managing the margin. He's not having to do anything untoward, over the top. He's driving well within his means, and he's not been threatened since the start of this race.
And I think he's listening to you, Jake, going and saying, I'm just going to go that extra lap just to prove him wrong. I'm going to go a little bit longer just to prove Jake wrong, that I can stretch these tires out a little bit more. I can push it a little bit harder, and I can still keep my times in the 1:16s mid to lows, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, his best lap time was his last lap time, a 1:16.5, and is still getting quicker and quicker as time goes on. I mean, you look at this, you wonder if these tires are going to drop off. Does he really need to change them? If it wasn't for the rules, will he ever run out of soft grip? And will he go in this lap? We'll find out. And just to prove us wrong again, does another lap on them.
Well, that's Eduardo Radiz for you. He'll drive them as long as he feels it's comfortable, and right now, a margin that is very, very comfortable to him. On that last lap, he did a 1:16.7. The last lap from Jacob Reed was a 1:16.5 by that trade, and there is Jacob Reed in second position. And He's a fantastic driver, is Jacob Reed. He's got the most pole positions, he's got the most points, the most wins, the most podiums out there. He's over 50 career podiums, by the way, or on 50 career podiums in the Grand Prix Tour. He's got the most top fives, the most top tens. He's pretty much Mr. Grand Prix Tour, is Jacob Reed. Issue is, his era was a couple years ago. Now he sets himself in the Eduardo Radice era, and he is realizing that Eduardo has raised the bar. He is more consistent. He is a better qualifier. He is someone who can go out there and use the Jordan Gronkowski strategy of starting on the softs and build a margin. It's very tough when you're going with the flow that you can't get back and get through. Volta looks remaining steadfast against Jeffrey Lawler, but Lawler holding his ground, doing very well as lead car out there in this group.
And Alex in third place, who got the pass done early on, checked out of this fight, leaving Walter and Jeffrey to slug it out between one another, trying to see what they can do to move up the order. Alex now going to be smiling at this stage of the game. Got to keep things consistent. He's 2 seconds ahead of his competitors, which can easily get snapped away in an instant. We've seen it happen thus far in the race, but now it's who's got the stamina to run that extra mile, who's willing to push. And another thing, who's got enough incident points still in the bag that they don't go and feel the fury from the iRacing stewards. They're more than happy to slow your pace down.
25th start in his Grand Prix Tour career for Alex Hagland, and critically, he has not seen the podium since Mexico last year, so this would be a welcome return to the podium to get some champagne honours for the Swede Alex Hagland, who has the unfortunate reputation of running hot and cold in this series. At some circuits he's lights out, at others he's really struggled. A 5th place in qualifying I think was really good in terms of what he could offer, and so a lot of others will be turning around and saying, look, this could be one where life is maybe getting a little bit easy, but he's still got to keep the pace with a 2.5 second margin to those who are all around, with the likes of Lawler and Lux. They're in that 4th and 5th positions, and Lawler just extending out then on this lap a little bit more, getting out to 6 or 7 tenths of a second down through Aqua Minerale. There's never really here at this circuit a place really, Stephen, where you can sit down and say, I can rest my brain as a driver. There's always something going on around here. A little turn to the left here, a little turn to the right, where you can't ever switch off at Imola.
At the moment you start to think that you do have a little bit of time to rest, that's 90% of the time you're in the wall. And unfortunately, this is some that drivers have already had. But for those that are still out there, still pushing that little bit harder, they're trying to think couple of corners ahead. They're trying to plot out their next move because they know they've got a couple of things working against him. Like Walter Lux, having the DRS capability to try and close up to Jeffrey Lawler, who will then have to use his battery to defend, to try and protect his position. This is where the ongoing fights, the ongoing balancing act between what you can do and what you have to deal with around Imola becomes so tricky. And I do want to point out, for Alex, who you mentioned, won last year in Mexico, it's only 10,300 kilometers difference if you're going from Mexico to Imola Grand Prix. I mean, it's not too bad. A year and 10,000 kilometers, that's not too much of a complaint to hold on to third. However, he does not want to be drawn into this fight at the moment because Lawler and Lux will quite easily utilize his slipstream, utilize the DRS, and try and get that third place back. All 3 drivers have touched on to that podium. All 3 drivers want to go for it. Walter Lux, however, losing a little bit of time under braking, going a little bit earlier, losing that little bit of confidence he had originally, and now has to try and figure out what can he do to close up to Jeffrey Lawler.
If he wants to get through, he knows that he could play long game here and try and burn Jeffrey's tyres up. We saw how he made mistakes in the first stint by being overly aggressive, trying to defend for a position. So that as well, I think, is going to be something where Jeffrey Lawler, I think, treads a little trepidatiously and hopes that he doesn't get into too much trouble with more of these drivers around. They know how tough of a run it is going to be. So they are going to set up. And here's the other thing that maybe I'm looking at right now here, Stephen, in terms of this race for Eduardo Rodis and why he is dragging this out so long. If he started on the soft tyre, he doesn't have the fastest lap of the race right now. That's currently in the hands of Jacob Reed. If he wants to get the fastest lap on a medium tyre, he needs a big offset to go and work with, and that would be, of course, to pick up the Grand Chelem, which is to get every lap led, pole position, and fastest lap with the race win.
This is going to be a lot of hard work, and considering how much he's having to work through the back markers that are no longer just all together. Everyone is opened up. They're in their own little silos that you've got to keep an eye out on. But I do want to point out one driver that's gone into the pits. Gabriel Martins has dived into a pit lane from 14th position and heading out now. Will be rejoining the circuit. So an interesting call coming from Martins. And here we go. Our leader into pit lane. 25 laps left. And what a stint on those tires. The question is, can he get his stop done, dusted, get back out on the circuit? And will Jacob Reed now start to dial up the wick, going quicker and quicker? His last lap time was a 1:16.2, which was his best and was quicker than Eduardo's time, who now needs to figure out what he can do on a new set of tires.
Eduardo Rodis went 39 laps on a set of soft tyres to start this race. Jacob Reed is just exiting Ravazza 2 now. Eduardo Rodis is already into Tamburello, so a big difference maker in terms of the gap. It will still be 12 seconds as he leaves and jumps on forward. Eduardo Rodis will know that all he has to do is bring the car home. Jacob Reed would have gone through the best of the tyre life then on those soft compound red Pirellis and will now be eyeing up the end of this race, thinking, okay, Eduardo Rodis could be someone of note that I think will need a mistake of some variety to try and hunt down here around Imola. And really an early stage of this season, we're only round 5 here of 24. This is a race that goes or a championship season that goes all the way to December, all the way to the Hockenheimring to leave the championship out. But the points you get early builds you buffer to go with later on. And when you consider that the next 3 tracks are some of the hardest tracks on the iRacing service. You've got Miami, which is unknown for these cars in quality. You've then got Montreal and then Long Beach, which is this series is Monaco. This is a really difficult phase of racing to get correct. You survive out of this run of 3-4 tracks with 40 points at least in the pocket, you feel like you won.
Now, this is going to be a hard one. I also do want to point out Rodis trying to break the streak and be the Italian to win the Italian Grand Prix. Walter Lux, however, in 5th place, now getting the hammer down once again. Seeing Jeffrey Lawler making those critical mistakes and has an opportunity to move up to 4th, but needs to get brave. He needs to put the nose in, and like the aggressive moves that we've seen before from drivers, he needs to be able to just take a deep breath, send it down the inside, and be confident in the car itself that it will stop, it will work with you, and that you can keep it all together. Jeffrey Lawler, however, hasn't been defending his lines. He's constantly on the racing line, not going and moving to be uber defensive. He's not trying to guard any inside overtakes. He's just maintaining his pace, not worrying about what's in the rearview mirror, but consistency being key throughout this lap.
Well, you just have to listen to the way here as we are on the rear exhaust here with Jeffrey Lawler. Just listen to how much engine braking that he's using around the circuit here. You don't get to hear it too often and too clearly, but he is down the gears really fast, using the high revs of the engine to slow the car down and get through the corners. It's a very unique driving style that is picked up here from Jeffrey Lawler, where other drivers are happier just to have that natural clunk down the gears and get themselves what they need. And now I know, damage and out, no front wheels for Gabriel Martinez. He's had troubles then going through Aqua Minerale.
Not what he wanted to have. And let's quickly take a look at that on our replay. Gabriel trying to make his way through, getting upset and, once again, bottomed out. Nails towards
That's the
the wall.
first one.
That
So
was a
he's
big
done
slide.
it another time after that, which has damaged the car. So we'll need to catch another replay of it in order to see exactly how that came about.
Now, I do want to point out, Lawler's taking a very interesting move because these cars don't have downshift protection too much, which means you can lock up the rear diff. Lawler has to be careful slamming it down the gears because that one shift too far means that you lock that diff up and that will instantly rotate the car underneath you. So it's a very balancing act on the way through, a very aggressive driving style that has high risk and high reward. But once again, that risk is a problem. I do want to also cast our eyes towards the front because take a look at Jacob Reed now going and breaking down to 9.7 seconds to Radis, who currently holds the top, trying to get that little bit of pace in. Lawler under threat, trying to guard his line into turn one. And once again, Walter Lux showing that he's not afraid to put his nose forward when he gets the opportunity.
No, he's definitely not scared. He's definitely not afraid out there. But Walter Lux knows if he's going to get that move, he's not going to get a clean shot at getting this pass. He's going to have to get a little bit elbows out. He's going to go to the 50%, the 40%, maybe even the 30% move to try and get those passes sorted. And I don't think he'll have everything his own way. Let's take another look, though, at the GSRC replay here. Gabriel Martinez again going through at Aqua Minerale, catches the curb early, and he will go nose first into the wall. Massive breakage of the front suspension, and nothing that he can really do about that at this stage. And I keep an eye once more to the gap, down now to 8.9 seconds here between Radis and Reed, as Jacob Reed is still trying to bring that gap back. But here's the issue that he sits with. It's effectively 9 seconds with 20 laps to go. So imagine it being 4.5 seconds with 10 laps to go. That's at least 20 straight laps he's got to do here, Stephen, at a case of half a second a lap quicker at least.
And you need to have the radio message, qualifying pace constantly running through, because that's what you need to do. If you want to go for the top spot, you're going to have to battle your way through. And Jacob Reed, not putting a foot wrong at the moment, knows that it's quality pace the whole way through. You're going to have to take every risk possible. You need to get the climb. And however, when you run into traffic, you got to make short work of them. You can't be the nice guy out on the circuit. And Walter Rees, who's on the medium tires, is making sure he clears through the traffic as fast as possible, and also utilizing the DRS to help him out every step of the way.
And he does so there with Edward Apari-Ari. So Eduardo goes by the anglicised namesake there of Edward. So Eduardo getting himself a comfortable get through then on that. 16.5 played up against a 16.9. So that was again another 0.4 of a second taken off at the front of this field. And eyes then set on Jacob Reed and the car in front of Sebastian Rekov here through Toza. Needs to get the drive, struggling there underneath the weight of that Mercedes in front. So Reed finally gets the clearance. It will cost about 0.6 of a second to go and get by. So traffic giveth and it taketh away in a race like this, with 16 runners still out there on circuit. Worth noting this fact as well: never had an iRacing Grand Prix Tour event without at least one retirement.
Now, I've got to point out, these cars are absolutely amazing, considering iRacing and Mercedes worked hand in hand to design, get the cars completely the same as the original W13 that has been one of the most dominating Grand Prix cars out on the circuit. And it's absolutely wonderful. We get to have these cars battling out. So far, with multiple splits, the series has been getting bigger and bigger every single race.
And you got to know, this is a 5,900 strength of field. You've got drivers like Matt Malone, for example, who are down in split 2 at this moment, unable to do anything about getting up to the top end. You needed over 4,500 iRated to get through, as Jacob Reed blitzing by Matthew Ridgway, who was immediately out of the throttle and not having to worry too much more with it. Sebastian Rekov in then for his final stop as he goes on to a fresh set of the soft compound tyres, and 9 seconds still the margin at the front. So Jacob Reed looking at this and thinking, well, am I using the best of my tyre? Have I got anything left to give in the final stages of this race? It's clear he's going to try and do something, but this is all about race management now from Eduardo Radice. He's given himself the platform.
And Jacob Reed going and having experience from the Lotus 49s, the 79s, right into the modern day Grand Prix, knows that how much development these cars have had, has lots of experience with lack of grip to tons of it, and now needs to utilize everything he's learned to go and fight out against Radice. That's so far been a dominating run throughout the season with only one misstep, getting a 6th place a little bit earlier on in the championship, and still is pushing harder and harder. That was round 2 that he got 6th at Mugello, and is looking to fix that wrong by getting a dominating run thus far. Imola to continue the streak, and also for his first win in the GP Tour, to battle it out here at Imola, to win as an Italian, to go on home turf and say, I have done it against some of the best in the world of single-seater racing.
Well, you've got to remember as well, Eduardo Radice actually crossed the checkered flag at Mugello first. He had a black flag on the final lap of the race at Mugello that dropped him back 5 places by the time he crossed the line. So he has finished first, quote unquote, every single race this season. It's just at Mugello, they had to penalise him for going once too many times over the limit. So I think for Eduardo Radice and how he's been driving, without that penalty on the final lap, he would be 5 out of 5 currently as he stands, with a dominating start to this season.
An absolute great run. So far, 12 cars on the lead lap, and it's getting smaller and smaller on that list as our leaders, with 16 laps to go, are pushing harder and harder. Every single driver out there continuing to figure out what they need to do. But the ongoing fight that has been happening for quite some time is between Lawler and Lux, who have not left each other's side. And for Lux, I think he's sick and tired of looking at that rear wing. He wants to try and clear on by. He wants to move up. But what a race thus far for Radice, who wants to keep the go moving. He wants to keep moving forward. He wants to stay at the top. The question is, has he got enough to climb through? Has he got enough pace to carry on through? And once again, how many of these drivers are riding that very fine line to drive through penalty, as everyone is looking for that little bit more pace, that 1/10 of a second through the corners that might be going and crossing the line.
Volta Lux then here in 5th position, knowing that he wants to jump up here into 4th and go and get this pass and really nail down the fact that he knows how to construct these overtakes. He has been an absolute servant to the Grand Prix Tour. Jeffrey Lawler, by comparison, a lot newer than this is his 2nd season. This is not his rookie season. This is his sophomore season in the Grand Prix Tour. And oh, he's off the road again. He's done it again. And he's gone straight across. Volta Lux will turn around. Look at his front wing. It's pinned in on the right-hand side. But Jeffrey Lawler, once shame on you, twice shame on me, trying to defend it. And for the 2nd time, he just overcooks it. And there's nothing he can do except drop back. Now he's on 17 incidents and with a drive-through.
And that is the equivalent of stubbing your toe on the corner side of the bed during a winter's night. Lawler going and having a nightmare run, and from 3rd place, being right up there at the top, now starting to fall down. You can see getting quite aggressive out there. Remember, he's going to get a drive-through after 8 incident points, and every time he gets a wheel wrong now, it's just going to add to that. You got a drive-through, but you still can rack up a 2nd one, and he wants to be rather careful with Lux ahead of him as he closes up at a rate of knots. And take a look under braking, was not afraid to get underneath that rear wing and just showing I'm still here for a bit of a run.
Two
And it
stop.
looks, that is an interesting run.
Yeah, that front wing, I think, is going to necessitate a two-stop strategy there. It's pinned in on the front right. You can see it. There's some tyres showing behind it on the camera angle that we've got. So this will be a new front wing for Volta Lux. Jeffrey Lawler will have a drive-through penalty, and up on the jack, slow to get up. It'll be about 10 seconds. We'll take another look. So Jeffrey Lawler once more sees Lux on that outside. He breaks out of it early, looks over the anti-cut curves. At that point, you've got to say to Jeffrey Lawler, you did that once and you saw James Byrne's race ruin. Now you've gone and done exactly the same to Volta Lux. I think you're going to have to start turning around and saying, I have to abandon the corner a little bit earlier, avoid the anti-cut curbs, take the gravel, and take the medicine to lose the place. I think it's a little too desperate the way he's been going about. Lux is going to come out in 8th place, just in front of George van Rensburg, and just behind Philip Koenhart, now up into a career-best 7th place.
And Sander and Leopold going and smiling all the way to the bank on others' misfortunes as they will be clawing up into 4th and 5th. Now, for Van Rensburg, it's about dialing it in, get that little bit of a run. The question that comes in for Walter Lux, has the red mist come down and starting to cloud that vision, that frustration being part of his race? Or is he able to just throw it off and continue on the race as Jeffrey Lawler making his way in for his drive-through penalty, and looks like he's going to get ahead once again of Walter Lux. How is that? You'll end up going over the front wing of your competitor. You still manage to get out ahead of him, and that just adds a little bit of salt into the wounds for Walter Lux.
Can I just note this point? Sander Haugerud was backwards at turn 1, and he is now 4th.
When you're good, you're good. That's all I can say. When you're good, you're good. It's about consistency after the mistake, and Sander has had a stellar run being consistent after the problem. After you got that little bit of a, well, it happened, it's now just keeping the momentum. He's up 2 places from where he started. He's going and looking at a good handful of points at this stage of the game, just outside the podium, and is just waiting for his opportunity. I think you can quote me on this. We're going to see Sander sitting in the top 3 during the course of the season. I'm going to go and put my hand on the block and say, watch this name, watch the orange, watch the Piastri start getting pulled out and making its way to the top.
He knows how quick he is, he knows how good he can be, but he's still got a bit of time to go and work with, to Eduardo Radice, to Jacob Reed, and even to James Byrne as well. But it is going to be about how hot you're going to have to be. Philip Koenhart now sees the Austrian behind him of Volta Lux, trying to figure out, do I have enough to cover off this move? Lux full bore with the DRS through turn 1, leading to turn 2, comfortably dispatches of the pass, moves himself through Tamburello, back up into 7th position, and again, limiting the damage 13 seconds off the back of Jeffrey Lawler, who's not done trying to get a top 5 off of the Swede Leopold Steneros.
And I've got to say, Philip was rather kind on that. He saw the DRS open and decided, not going to quite fight you. I know where the pace is. Instead, I'm going to utilize you to try and open away from George van Rensburg, who's been closing down on me during the course of this race, being one of our hardest chargers this race thus far, up 9 places, looking to make it 10. Philip hoping to stop that from happening. The South African's got a bit of work to catch up to the German, and Van Rensburg is trying every which way under braking to see if he can close that distance, to try and go fight it out. With 11 laps to go, can he make it 10 places up from the start, or will Philip Koenhart go and sit with 5 places above where he started, go and shut down that momentum and hold 8th place?
George van Rensburg this season has 2 non-finishes and 2 7th place finishes over the course of this one. He notes he's in the number 7 car out there today, and he's eyeing up 8th place as your biggest mover in the field, and he knows Volta Lux is maybe quicker than him at the moment, and he will know that this will be the last position that he can realistically get his hands on without mistake. Short shoot run out of the Villeneuve chicane to the Tosa hairpin and back up the hill towards Piratella. It's lumpy, it's bumpy around here, and for George van Rensburg, he knows that he is only 10 laps away from the end of this race, so he's got to try and set up this move and go for it. And you saw there actually quite a bit of marble runoff then that was over that front right tyre. They've got to be very careful about how much debris has been discarded over the course of this race.
Taking an aggressive driving style, going and copying what Dave Cholton used to do. Go mount the curves, push that little bit harder, see where you can really find the limits of the car. And I've got to point out, taking a little bit of liberties, going into the dirt on the front right as he heads down to Variante 1. Got to be careful with that, as it's bitten those in the past. That little bit of grass build-up on the front right, you don't think it does much until you're trying to slow the car down at 200 plus kilometers an hour.
Well, didn't get close enough into Tamburello at turn 2, but now he's pinned up behind Philip Koenhart, and I think this is about where the differences in pace are there to lie. And this is where George van Rensburg, I think, is just setting himself up, being quite steely in this. He's got 6.5 seconds to James Byrne behind, and he doesn't want to eat into that margin, and neither does Philip Koenhart late on in this race. He doesn't want to lose a 9th place finish out there, or even an 8th place finish if he can help it. His best is a solitary 10th place for Philip Koenhart over the course of his career, and that 10th place for Philip, it's worth noting here that he only managed to get that, his only point score was at Suzuka. So that, I think, a real indicator of what Philip Koenhart is all about. As he hits the brakes, he chucks it through the left of Ravazza, and again through the middle part of the lap, he builds the 7/10. But will the race leader behind make a difference factor in this battle?
I do want to point out our race leader will be lapping 9th and 8th position, putting them a lap down when he comes through. This is absolutely incredible pace, and Radice is making dead sure that the field knows the name. The field gets to see his pace. The field gets to see the bar set at such a high place, and saying, guys, bit of practice, bit of work, and a whole lot of skill can get you this far.
It very much can, and Eduardo Radice for the longest time was podium, couldn't find a race win, couldn't buy a race win out there, and this is what we've been seeing, that eternal grind from 23 to 24, from 24 to 25, from 25 to 26, and this is Eduardo Radice at his level best. There is also the battle going on for 5th and 6th too, to keep note, but it is there in the top right of your screen. Lawler trying to get by Leopold Steneros, and Leopold doesn't have much for it. Jeffrey Lawler comfortably gets it done, moving through at Tamburello. Now Philip Koenhart realises, I'm vulnerable here. George van Rensburg wants to clear, then allow himself to get lapped, and this is going to be where the move's going to have to happen. Round the outside from the South African on the German, and he'll get the move, and Eduardo Radice having to go around the outside. That's a massive risk.
And nearly over the very same anti-cut curbs that have gone and ruined races, broken cars to pieces. What a risk, but well done on getting it held. And I do think that Philip Koenhart looked to his right and went, oh boy, what's this going to look like? And what a drive. Now Radice needs to try and close up to the South African. Philip Koenhart can now utilize the toe and see if he can try and use the leader as a wrecking ball to retake that position.
I tell you what, I wouldn't have done that if I was Eduardo Radice. I don't think many drivers would have taken that much risk in through Tamburello, but he saw a gap, he saw a line, he pinned it down on the outside, and nobody was going to tell him otherwise that this was going to be his to worry about at this point. He lost a second being stuck behind there rather than 2, rather than 3, but he'll also look around at this and realise that Jacob Reed is still hunting for this. He still wants it, and any small mistake as that things will go can really change it. There is Jacob Reed in second, but Eduardo Radice knows he's got a long way to Volta Lux now, so he's just got to manage the final 6 laps of this race. to go and get his 4th win of the season and his 3rd in a row.
I do want to point out that is the difference between an 8,000 iRacing driver and drivers that are sitting with 1,500. You look at that and you go, it can never be done. The 8,000, yeah, I can make it work. Watch me. I'm going to lick it and send it. And that is why we say we've got some of the best in the world of Formula drivers. I'm going to go the extra little bit and say this is the best in the world, fighting it out, doing what they can out there, showing off the talent, because these cars are not easy to drive. They're not simple to drive. They're not like your usual F4s, but they're a whole lot of fun when you get it right. But when you get it wrong, as we've seen, they break into Lego pieces.
Missing front wing and a drive-through penalty, and you're still going to get a point out of it. I think James Byrne is going to be very happy with it. He'll be pushing hard to see whether he can get 2 points from this and get an extra one from Philip Kunhart with 5 laps to go here around this race. And this is the moment that the championship has gone from being close to being blown out wide open. He knows Jacob Reed is going to be 18 points the better then with a 2nd place for the 2nd time this season, and he's there on 1 point. So for the moment, those two, Byrne and Reed, next to each other on track, will be currently tied on points heading to Miami.
And it is going to be burning him properly, excuse the pun on that one, because Jacob Reed and James Byrne at the start of the race were all over the back of one another. Now it's just changed. Now you are taking a look. You're trying to keep it together, and there goes Reed clearing by. Both of them had a moment, but at the same time, you can feel the absolute, well, I would say the sting coming in, knowing that was nearly you. The unfortunate mistakes have now brought you down, and a single point going into your pocket, but unfortunately is now blowing the championship wide open.
Alex Hagland will be very happy. He'll jump over Mario Bodlosh, Emil Bernstorff, Leopold Steneros here with this 3rd place finish. And he knows that he'll be nearing more the likes of Lawler and Haugerud with a 3rd place result out there. He's just been very quiet, getting on his business. He's 22 seconds behind Jacob Reed. He's 20 seconds ahead of Sander Haugerud. He is island racing and knows that all he has to do is bring this one back in one piece.
And breaking the streak in the process. I mean, this is one thing, the confidence that it throws in towards the next race, knowing that you can do it, you can make it work, you just need to keep that consistency up. And well, for Alex, it's everything at the moment. Drivers just giving room to one another, everyone in autopilot mode, everyone knackered. It's not easy to battle it out in a 20-lap race in these cars. Now you make it a 63-lap, and every single driver has pushed that little bit harder, going and continuing to keep within the 17s, majority of the field sitting in the 1-minute 17s, which is incredibly quick. But you can be sure the legs are tired, the arms are tired, you're physically worn out, mentally you are just waiting, you're counting down the laps at this stage of the game. And for quite a few drivers, they're looking to the relative, trying to eye out where the leader is. What do they need to do to try and lose that extra lap, and rather just try and go that little bit further of, okay, come past me, I want to see this to the end. I just want to keep alive at this stage of the game.
Well, how alive can you be? How available are you in the late stages of this race? How switched on are you going to need to be? It's so easy to see a race like this one fall away with one lapse of concentration out here around Imola, and it's why you never call a race like this one over until you round through the final corners. What tenacity as well. Alternative strategy. Eduardo Radice is rewriting the rule book for how you do this race. Normally we talk about the fact the fastest strategy is to be on the quickest tyre at the end of the race. He's, for the 2nd time I've seen this season, has gone on for a medium tyre to start off, to end the race from a soft tyre start. It is something that is really going to be tearing the hair out of all his competitors.
And I know there's going to be a few competitors come the next race that are going to wait till the very last second to see what tyre set that Radice starts on, because that was the tell. He waited till the very last moment to grid up and ensuring that none of these competitors get to see what he is starting on and could leave it up to a surprise, and many got caught out by that.
A 1:16 flat set on lap 58 is now the new fastest lap of this event. It's a 10th quicker than Jacob Reed, and for the moment Eduardo Radice is sat on Grand Chelem Honours, which is a fastest lap, a pole position, a race win, and every single lap of this race in his back pocket, and he knows as he runs through Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2, he is about to start a final lap with a 9-second margin here at the front of this field. It's not been the easiest in the world. He's had to have his own risks, as in your top right corner of your screen, there is Sebastian Rekov and Ridgway fighting for position. Rekov has to get way out of it. Matthew Ridgway holds his ground then for that 15th spot and says, I'm not letting that one go, not like this, and definitely not yet. Already to the Villeneuve chicane. The mark of a champion is how you respond after reaching the top of the mountain. It's almost Rory McIlroy-ish, what we saw at the Masters last week. It was a case of once you get there, it gets and feels sometimes so much easier to get the monkey off the back. And Eduardo Radice is driving with a level of form at this moment in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour that nobody is even close to trying to match. He has seen James Byrne for the first time this season, not his fault, James, by the way, get himself into trouble with incidents, with damage. Jacob Reed just hasn't got the same step that he had 2 or 3 years ago, but down into Ravazza for the final time. Eduardo Radice is epic, and epic is the only way to describe him. He has dominated his home race with, simply put, a magnificent style, a Grand Chelem of the highest caliber.
And one he's been waiting for years. Radice going and smiling as Jacob Reed gets second place. It's no easy effort to be at the top of the ladder, and Jacob Reed can be happy on the second run. Alex Helgaard, who will be more than happy on a third place, quietly going and clawing his way through, and now stands on the final step of the podium.
Brilliant for Alex Hagland, his first podium since Mexico 2025. And as we note this too, over towards the line, Sebastian Rekov gets a second drive-through penalty on the final lap, so he will be even more 16th as he crosses Sander Halgaru from backwards to 4th position over the line. Is a mega result out of a terrible situation, and Jeffrey Lawler's not going to be making friends with some of the brass out there. And is that Leopold Steneros out of fuel over the line? Leopold Steneros is out, so Volta Lux is going to steal 6th place away on the final lap. He didn't manage his fuel numbers correctly. Leopold, oh no, that's going to be a costly 2 points to leave on the table there, and he will rue those by the time he reaches the end of this season. Goodness gracious me, what a day that we have had, and it is a day of dominance for Eduardo Radice. It's his era, and right now he is proving very tough to beat out there. His 3rd straight win, the 5th checkered flag he has seen this season as he wins by 8.6 over Jacob Reed. Alex Hagland then finishing off in 3rd. Sander Halgaru will be then in 4th, with Jeffrey Lawler getting busy with the likes of James Byrne and Volta Lux. He's 5th with Volta Lux 6th, and Leopold Steneros running out of fuel on the final lap and only getting 7th for his troubles. George van Rensburg would get the pass on Philip Koenhart late, which is a career best for Philip in 9th, as James Byrne would take 1 point and now finds himself tied with Jacob Reed in the championship for 2nd. His finish, 10th place.
Edward Opera holding on to 11th ahead of Balias Gala. Kent Nelson in 13th. Dennis Brunch managing to finish 14th. Matthew Ridgway. Sebastian Recon, unfortunately, going and getting another hammer down on penalties. Gabriel Martinez going and running out and landed up with damage. Florian Clement, Pedro Gomez, and Wesley Baptista all running into a bad race, and will be thinking, I'm done with this.
Wow. What a tough day at the office for many of these drivers in and bold. So, as we note too, on the final lap, the Grand Chelem then is not going to be the case, as it would be stolen with Volta Lux's 1:15.7 on the final lap. Eduardo Rodis, though, still a dominant lights to flag performance here today that cannot be ignored. But critically here, Stephen, though, as they look to set themselves up, 5 rounds in, I think is a very good citer for what the opening of the season has been and has become. Eduardo Rodis has pretty much raised the game from last season, where he did have a great run in the middle, but something about the build of this car suits him right down to a T. Everybody else has not been able to hit his level.
But that also being said, we're now getting into the trickiest part of the season. Miami International Autodrome will be the next one. It is a difficult circuit and is unknown grounds to these drivers. On May 3rd, on 1st of May, will be a difficult time, unknown, and for many drivers, well, those walls are just a tad too close, even at the best of times with the best of cars.
Well, the only place you can catch that is with us on the Global SimRacing Channel as part of a Genesis Extreme production. It's going to be one full of drivers looking to tackle it for the first ever time in the Grand Prix Tour. So there's not necessarily a great understanding of what you need to do, but there are 2 very big DRS zones you can go and make the passes at. Of course, the long backstretch to turn 11 and then to turn 17, that tight final finishing corner out there here around this track. There is also a lot of amazing racing to come on the Global SimRacing Channel over the course of this week. You can join me over on the Grand Prix Legends Show tomorrow at 2:30 in British summer time, 1:30 UTC from Road America. It is going to be very tough for the Grand Prix Legends to get any form of separation there. IMSA Vintage will be jumping over to the national layout of Donington Park, and that's going to be a big, strong battle over to Road Atlanta, where it's going to be a wonderful scrap for the 79s, and then back over again to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, as the Porsche's Owners Club will decide that they want a bit of action Tuesday morning, Monday night, over again from Road America. But today is where Eduardo Rodis stamps down the gauntlet and says it's perfect or it's going to be bust for everyone else in this championship. He knows that he now moves more than a race win clear through the first 5 rounds of this season. He has seen 5 checkered flags in first position, with 4 wins attributed to his name. He can't do much better than what he's doing at the moment. And James Byrne will look at today and feel he was very hard done by and lucky to get a point. Jacob Reed, quick, but quick is not quick enough for what he looks at. Eduardo, excellent, but will there be some vices to try and uncork for those who haven't quite got it right so far as we head to Miami?